If you're trying to be totally present and you're in your phone and you got your laptop and you're doing emails and you're dealing with business back home and doing all this stuff all the time, you're not wholly present with the people that you're there. You're never going to get the full experience that you're after. And what I love about this is that there's no cell phone reception in our town. We moved from suburbia, living in basically a private neighborhood with $1 million house in a cul-de-sac on a golf course, to living in the jungle. And it's like the road to even get to this place is like you feel like you need an off-road vehicle to get there. We packed up. We sold about 90% of everything that we owned. We took the rest of the 10%. We put it in a storage unit. My wife and I took our 3 kids, 13, 10, and 6. On January 1st, we took over operational control and purchased this retreat center. And so that has been an interesting journey on its own.
What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Complete Retreat Podcast. Today's guest is my friend Chris Kirkpatrick. Chris has a fascinating story. A little over a year ago, Chris bought a retreat center in the middle of the jungle in the Dominican Republic. He packed up his whole family, left his very comfortable life in suburbia, and moved to a Caribbean island. I hear a lot of people talking about how they'd love to own a retreat center someday. The thing is, Chris actually did it. And he shares his story about how he got there and what it's been like the first year of owning a retreat center, from living on a golf course to the jungle. But before moving his family to the Dominican, Chris had built a successful career as an entrepreneur and a business owner. And in this conversation, Chris shares some of his tips and secrets around marketing, how he successfully created an authority platform, what that means, and how he leverages YouTube to help support his business and his lifestyle. Chris shares a ton of very useful and valuable tips when it comes to marketing yourself, building your brand, whether you're a retreat creator, a retreat host, whether you own a retreat center. There's something in this podcast for everyone. So let's just get into it. So Chris, I would love to hear about what the last year of your life has been. Because when I met you about 1.5 years ago, You were packing up your whole life in Arizona and getting ready to move to the Dominican Republic because you had just purchased a retreat center.
Yep.
So yeah, please let me know what this last year has been like for you and your family, because it was a whole thing.
It's been crazy. So yeah, actually it was December 31st, New Year's Eve, 2023. We packed up. We sold about 90% of everything that we owned. We took the rest of the 10%. We put it in a storage unit. My wife and I took our 3 kids, 13, 10, and 6, and actually 12, 9, and 5 at the time, and we moved them down to the DR. And so we landed at 11 p.m. on the 31st of December, so New Year's Eve. And then we drove across the island when we landed, and it was like 1 a.m. by the time we actually got to our destination. And on January 1st, we took over operational control and purchased this retreat center. It was actually like an eco hotel that we are converting into a retreat center. And so that has been an interesting journey on its own, right? So all of last year, we spent time relocating, getting used to living in a third world country, in a developing nation, and not just like, if you've ever been to the Dominican Republic, which I know you have, I mean, you know the area well, right? You've been there. And so moving to a Caribbean island where, maybe you move into the city like Santo Domingo, you could move to the Dominican Republic and go to Punta Cana or Santo Domingo or Santiago or Puerto Plata. And there's a lot of access to resources and so on and so forth. We are out in the middle of the jungle in a fishing village with very unstable power. And it's like the road to even get to this place is like you feel like you need an off-road vehicle to get there. And so we moved from suburbia, living in basically a private neighborhood with $1 million house in a cul-de-sac on a golf course, to living in the jungle. And so it was like just a wild polarity, right? Like just a major shift. And it was exciting, and moving and being in that environment had a lot of challenges. What I did love and what I do love still is, we have this place, and the property where we purchased is just its own little magical place on this earth. It's got an amazing energy around it. I've really loved the process of working on converting it from an eco hotel to a complete retreat center. That is still a work in progress. Last year had plenty of challenges. I'm sure we'll get into that. But really what we decided is when we bought the place, we had planned initially having all these goals for expansion and growth and all this stuff. And very quickly, I realized that I was a little over my skis. I was going a little too fast. And things didn't work down here the way that they work in the United States. You got to operate differently. You got to build differently. Like, you got to have different relationships with different people. And luckily, we know a lot of the right people. But what I also realized was that we had a responsibility to take what we purchased, the asset that we have, which was the hotel with 10 rooms and a beautiful property in a unique place in the jungle. And we had to take and maximize what we had before we built out and expanded. And so last year, our first year, we had 13 retreats that we hosted and ran throughout the entire year. And now, so far in 2025, we already have 22 retreats on the books. And so we're working on building those out. And obviously, my goal is to get to 30 retreats this year throughout the year. And ultimately, next year, I want to have 46 retreats. So we don't have to operate as a hotel at all anymore. The goal is to have 46 retreats throughout the year, and then have 6 weeks of downtime that we can work on maintenance and, fixing the property up and giving key employees time off and so on and so forth, and go from there. But last year, going through that process, I would say the first 6 months was kind of me bringing my American way of doing things down there and just fighting and just pressure and fighting and kind of like feeling like I kept coming up against this wall and I wasn't in flow, so to speak. You know what I mean? I was just trying to be a sledgehammer to everything that I was doing, which is like, let's face it, it's the American way, right? Like things had to be done. They had to be done a certain way on a certain time frame. And if they weren't done the way that we needed them, up to a certain code, then I wasn't happy. And I was just having a lot of friction with everybody I was working with. My wife and I were having a challenge with everybody we were working with, like on the construction side, on the rehabilitation of the property side. And then I just hit the place where I realized, okay, this is never going to be up to United States code standard. So just settle into that, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, ease into it, just get in flow, and realize the magic and the beauty of what that could be for what you can build out of it, and allow it to be a bit more rough and allow it to be a bit more Caribbean jungle, right? It's just, there's a magic in that as well. And so, we've had to shift our expectations, but I think in doing that, it's allowed us to get to this place now where we have an amazing staff. I think people are living and working and operating in flow. It's been amazing for us at this point in time to have the right people in place that help operate it. I think we have the best, I would argue we have probably one of the best staffs in the entire Dominican Republic for any kind of eco retreat center like this, especially for our size of a property. And yeah, it's just been really fun. I think one of my favorite parts has been building relationships with the people that come down and run retreats there, because some of the coolest people, right? And so to me, that's been selfishly one of the best parts of the whole deal.
Sounds like you went down there with an idea of what you could do to change the place, change the environment.
Oh yeah.
These changes that you wanted to make. And a year later, the thing that actually changed is not so much the retreat center, but more so you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's really interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Homeowners, people, whenever you buy a home or a property, you have all these ideas. And when you put yourself in that environment, you start to learn that it's easier and more healthful to kind of start to go with the flow and find a natural rhythm of that place than to, as you said, just try to hammer home and get things done. And it's, I've been to Zaria, and it's not like you can just go to the Home Depot and get some 2x4s and some nails to build the deck. I mean, like you said, it's out there, and you do almost need a 4x4 or 4-wheel drive to get to where you're at. It's, that's what makes it so magical in one part, because there's not a lot of people out there, and the people who go there, they want to be there and they have to make an effort to get there.
For sure.
But when you do get there, it's, in my experience, it was 100% worth all the effort to get there. So that's a really interesting perspective on how the space changed you as much, if not more, than you changed the space. And, with the plans moving forward, I was there for a like a business retreat, essentially, like a
Yep.
business
Yeah.
mastermind. And what was that the first retreat that you hosted at Zaria?
That was the first one I hosted. Yeah, we had other retreats there, but we also, for my company, Life 180, and Hannah, my wife, also ran a retreat last year. And we're also running now couples retreats that we're hosting together. And so we run some of our own retreats. I'll tell you, we're probably going to run 3 or 4 of our own retreats this year. But the place is not designed for us to just host our own retreats. Our real objective is to be a container, right? To allow other retreat hosts, whether it's people that want to work in different modalities, from breath work to just conscious business masterminds to yoga to adventure retreats to all over the board. We have kind of access to all of it. The goal is to create a container where people can feel safe and to realize that our property size is pretty much perfect for 20 to 30 people to come down, to be able to access and have a private property all to themselves, built into a cliff with private meeting spaces, a private pool, private ceremony spaces, whatever you need, and you have access to all of it. And we're, a stone's throw from the beach, basically. We have all sorts of excursions that people can do, everything from adventure to tranquility, hiking the tallest waterfall in the Caribbean, to all these different things, zip lining and exotic beaches and catamarans and whale watching and all this different stuff that kind of comes into play. And so we're located in this really unique space that's close enough to a lot of the excursions where we can get there really easily, but also isolated and far enough so you have this tranquil space to be. Yeah, I love it. So our main focus, while we do run retreats that we host, the main focus is, in a perfect world, I'd love to have, say, 40 to 42 retreats a year that we bring in influencers and retreat hosts that are just looking to have a good container with people that share values,
This episode of the Complete Retreat Podcast is brought to you by retreathelp.com, where conscious retreat owners go to sell out their events, increase revenue, simplify their business operations, and have a greater impact on the world with less stress. Retreat Help is changing the retreat industry with its dynamic and innovative business systems that allow retreat business owners to spend less time on tedious administrative tasks and more time doing what they love. Give us a call and let our experience and expertise accelerate your business. From creating professional, high-performing websites that boost credibility, improve the customer experience, and increase sales, to setting up a complete technical system that grows your business on autopilot 24/7 without you needing to manage it. Whatever your situation is, Retreat Help's got you covered. Whether you're new to the retreat industry or you're a well-established veteran, save yourself time and money by leveraging Retreat Help's comprehensive business solutions. Visit retreathelp.com and set up a call to learn more. Yeah, and the space that you have there is really diverse and unique and close to so many cool things. You can walk down to the beach. Yep. And, like I said, I was there for more of a business mastermind, and I could have not imagined how putting a business context for the mastermind in such a beautiful and holistic and just natural setting.
Yeah.
How the space that we're in had such an impact on the business mastermind itself, and the things that we're able to take away, and having the ability to really connect with the other people in the mastermind.
Yep.
Usually when you think of business mastermind, often you think of hotel lobby or hotel ballrooms or some rented room in a hotel.
Center. Yeah.
Yeah, some convention center somewhere.
Yep.
And this was such a departure from that. And I know you've done a lot more business masterminds than I have.
Yep.
And so I'm curious, given your perspective and your experience, what it adds to the experience of something like a business mastermind, or something you might not necessarily think about putting in the middle of the jungle of the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
What can that add to an experience?
Well, it's interesting. So we just did a retreat, and the cool part about this is I call it disconnect to reconnect, right? So let's face it, we're all so connected in our lives and our devices, and, with tasks and our responsibilities and all these different things, it's so hard to be fully, wholly present, right? It's fair. It's almost impossible. And so what I love is this process when people come down and do a mastermind, and I call it a conscious business mastermind. That's what really works where we are. It's not a conference, it's a conscious business mastermind. And the reason that it works is because people come down, and the goal when you do a mastermind is to be totally present with the people that you're masterminding with, right? Like that is the goal. Now, when they come down, if you're trying to be totally present and you're in your phone and you got your laptop and you're doing emails and you're dealing with business back home and doing all this stuff all the time, you're not wholly present with the people that you're there. You're never going to get the full experience that you're after. And what I love about this is that there's no cell phone reception in our town. So that's awesome. We have Starlink, right? But the cool part is, and so I'm going to use the example here. We just did this for the first time where a group came down and there was 14 of them. And they came down, and the goal, and the guy who was leading the group was like, listen, I want to allow people so they could be connected a little bit, right? Like in the mornings, give them like an hour and a half window. We give them 90 minutes in the morning to connect and do their work, check emails, so they could feel like they were doing their thing. But that he gave them a window, and they knew that they had that one time that they had to work. And he said, outside of that, I literally want you to cut Starlink off. Like, do not allow them to access the internet. And so we literally got to toggle people's connection on and off, and there was no escape. And so the crazy part, and you probably relate to this, is for me, I've been through this several times, going to ayahuasca retreats and so on and so forth, like going down into the jungle and disconnecting. At first, it's like, oh my God, I got all this stuff I got to get done. And it's like, you kind of get like a little anxiety, like of all the things and what's going to happen and how much work's going to be there when I get back. And then after about 24, maybe 36 hours, you just kind of go, screw it. Like, I can't do anything about it. I might as well just settle into this flow that I'm in for this journey. And after the first day and a half, the next 5 days or so just become some of the greatest connection. It's where you can get more of the in-depth work done. It's where you have some of the biggest realizations and the biggest breakthroughs, that you could possibly find. And that's where the power happens. And for me, that's what I love about a location like we have. And that's one of the things that I didn't even realize it when we bought it, but that's really what attracted me to it. Like that at the end of the day, having that type of location where you can disconnect to reconnect, where you have this place that is like really spiritually in tune. I'm going to call it a vortex because it's really a magical like energy on the property, but then also it's a flexible enough thing where you can kind of create what you need to create, right? So if whatever you have as a retreat leader to come down, whatever kind of container that you want to create, you can create intentionally. And a lot of places you can't do that because no matter what you want to create, you're powerless in the sense that you're always connected to the internet and so on and so forth. And so to be able to just flip that switch on and off is a real powerful tool.
And I think this is a trend we're going to continue to see, and it's something that's starting to emerge, where people in the business world are starting to, they'll take their team, they'll take their the leaders in their business, and they'll disconnect them, get them away from the everyday routines, and do a pattern interrupt, so that they can get back to connecting with each other and really start to unlock new ideas and creativity. Because when you're stuck in these everyday rhythms, we all get into our patterns, and the more deeply entrained we get in those patterns, the less creative we can become in a lot of areas. And looking at the world we're in now, things are changing really rapidly, and being able to be creative and to adapt in a business sense to the changing times is going to be super important.
100%.
So I foresee people moving, the team leaders doing more of that and utilizing spaces like the one you have to do more team building exercises and have those experiences. I mean, we went on the zip line. When I was there, and we went to a deserted beach. That was pretty wild. That we took that catamaran through the crazy waves to get out there. I mean, it was an awesome experience. And, those things that we did, those excursions, those more team building type experiences, they were really memorable, and they helped to enhance the experience overall and help to create those breakthroughs. I know I had a pretty significant breakthrough, and just a lot of things shifted for me when I was there. I know a lot of other people did on the team as well.
For sure.
And and the kinds of relationships that were built. I mean, I still get on a call every 2 weeks with a lot of the guys that were at that
Awesome.
experience.
Yeah, and it's been like
So
9 months since
yeah,
the first one, right? So you guys have been doing that for a long time.
yeah, and I look forward to it
Yeah.
every 2 weeks. We get on a call every Friday afternoon, and
It's amazing.
I haven't seen any of them in person since then.
Awesome.
But that's, again, disconnecting a lot from the internet, from your everyday life, allows you that space to form these new connections and to have the kind of breakthroughs that people are looking for. If you're in a position of leadership within your business, there's nothing more fulfilling than seeing the people who are on your team grow and expand and have new experiences and push themselves outside of their comfort zones. I know we saw a couple of people get on a zip line. When we first got there, they said, "Oh, hell no, there's no way I'm getting on that zip line." And then everybody else is doing it. They're like, "You know what? I think I can do it." Totally. And they did it. And that was a big moment for some of those, for some people. And it may not seem like much, but as a business leader or a retreat leader, somebody who's got a team, creating those kind of opportunities for people and curating that space that's going to allow you those opportunities, whatever it is I think kind of overlooked when people are planning retreats. They're like, okay, how much can we get done? How much can we pack in? How many guest speakers can we get in? Like, what can we pack into this limited amount of time? And based on what you're saying and in my experience, maybe leaving a little bit of room for flexibility and space and openness, that may get you greater results in the long run than trying to pack so much into, tightly into a small, just a few days.
Yeah. I mean, you creating an environment and a container, that allows people to do that, and then creating an itinerary that enables people to really connect with themselves and then connect with the other people in the group as well. I think it's one of the things that we're missing the most in this world is connection with other humans, like true connection, not just like we're connected on social media, right? Like not that we're just having these surface level conversations, but when you put together a program, an itinerary for an event, and the itinerary is focused on building depth and working through things and working through challenges and learning parts about yourself that you maybe have never explored before. And then once you do that and you start scraping away at the surface levels of people, and then you create space and allow people to explore, allow people to journal, allow people to work deeply within themselves. And then you create space where they can all connect with each other and talk about and integrate what the experiences have been like during that. That's where real relationships are forged. Like that's it. And I think that's why you guys are still talking all the time, because you all went through that experience together. And with that, now you have this common thread where you shared this experience, and nobody else will understand that except for you guys that were there together, going through it together. It's kind of like people, and I don't want to equate it to this, but it's similar to people who are platoon mates in war and going through these experiences. And, they have a brotherhood. They have a thing because they went through something unique that nobody outside that would be able to understand. And so it's different, but it's very much the same at the same time,
Yeah. And that just brought up thoughts of my very first ayahuasca retreat that I went to. It was like almost 9 years ago at this point.
Right.
And I'm still in contact with some of the people that I met at that very first retreat.
Love it.
I mean, the guy who sat on my left, the person who was right next to me, he's still a good friend of mine. And I still communicate with him fairly regularly.
That's awesome.
So creating or putting your team or getting people out of their comfort zones allows people to open up in very unique ways. And opening up facilitates a deep connection for other people who are in that group and sharing that experience. And again, I foresee businesses doing this more and getting, pushing their teams further and further out of the comfort zone in this sort of a setting that's still very comfortable. I mean, the food at Zaria was off the chain. It was so good. I mean, I'm sure you get that. You probably hear that a lot.
It's good. It like we got so lucky with our cook, with our chef.
Shout out to Willie.
Yeah, Willie's amazing. Yeah, and actually, we got a group coming in tonight as we're filming this. I'm going down, bringing the family down. We're gonna have dinner there with a group of 7 or 8 people that are coming in, and it's gonna be the first time I've eaten at the retreat center in like 2 months. So I'm excited to go down and have some of Willie's cooking. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. So I mean, It's cool because it's far enough out there to where it does, it gets people out of their comfort zones, and there still are comforts and amenities. The beds are nice. The food is great.
Yep.
So people can really focus on what they came there to focus on.
For sure.
I spent the 2 weeks in the jungle in Peru a few years ago, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. And there were bugs. Like there's a lot more variables in that situation.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It made the experience what it was.
Yeah.
And in the context of hosting a transformative retreat or experience for people, you want to be able to a certain extent, control the amount of variables that you introduce into the container and when you introduce those variables into the container. That's having the option to push people outside of their comfort zone rather than, you're just in the jungle with no fly net and you're going to get eaten by mosquitoes.
Well,
the comforts that are available there, although while they are somewhat basic, you have everything that you need, and all the bases, the foundational bases are covered. So you can really, get down and focus on what you came there to focus on.
Totally. And one of the reasons we chose to come to the Dominican instead of Costa Rica, which is the other place we were looking, is because nothing in the Dominican Republic wants to kill you, and everything in Costa Rica or the Amazon or whatever, it's full of poisonous stuff that literally is just wants to eat you, wants to bite you, wants to poison you, it's nuts. And so I remember the first time I came here and toured the property and walked through the jungle, and the guy that was walking me through, and I had just been in Costa Rica, and I get out of the car, out of his little Jimny, and we started walking through the jungle, and I'm booted up, got my legs covered and all this stuff. And he gets out in his shorts and flip-flops and he's walking through the jungle. I'm like, dude, Austin, what are you doing? You're going to get killed. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what about all the poisonous stuff? He's like, that doesn't exist here. And I'm like, okay, we're in. That to me, to knowing that we're going to move down here with our kids and let them just run through the jungle and roam free without having to worry about are they going to run into a spider or a frog or an ant or, a snake or something that is going to get them. It's cool. Now, I'm not saying we don't have bugs or something like that, but nothing here is dangerous. So once again, this goes to your state of mind as you go in. A lot of people that are already a little uncomfortable, it makes it a lot easier to know that, okay, you're going to be uncomfortable enough seeing a bug, but to know that bug is not going to be dangerous to you allows you to just decompress a lot, right? Because let's face it, most people that live in a more developed existence are really uncomfortable going into the jungle, right? And knowing that they're exposed in so many different ways. And so to be able to have a space where people can kind of get that exposure without the risks associated with what the assumptions of that exposure look like is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was not aware that the Dominican Republic it has less venomous and dangerous creepy crawlies than other Caribbean islands.
Yeah, so there's nothing here, man. The only thing here that is poisonous at all are these little scorpions. And I mean, I'm from Arizona, so to me, that's nothing. You get bit by a scorpion, don't get me wrong, it's going to suck. But it's, A, we don't have that many of them. B, if you get bit, it's literally, you don't even have to go to the doctor. It's just it sucks. It hurts for a couple days and then you're good,
Yeah. So one other thing that I wanted to talk about in this conversation and knowing you and knowing your past, I think of you as an incredible marketer, and you've done a large variety of businesses and have had a lot of success in business before this current venture with Zaria. And one thing that I've learned from you that stuck with me and that I now help to teach to other people and show other people how to do. And an idea that I introduce people to often is the idea of building an authority platform.
Yeah.
And that's something that you've done, again, in a different business context, but you've done it very well. And if I'm not mistaken, that's part of building that authority platform has allowed you to have a lot of options and has allowed you to do some of the things that you're doing now and has created opportunities for you. So, I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience in maybe first, how do you describe an authority platform? What has your experience been like building your authority platform? And for people who may be listening to this, how can retreat leaders, retreat creators, people who are maybe running retreat businesses, what are some practical things that people can implement in their own marketing strategy that they can take away from the success that you've had?
It's funny you say this. So I was having a conversation with my 13-year-old daughter last night, nightly, and she was just like talking to me about we've got her into horseback riding and all this stuff. She's got lessons. She goes to this barn locally and gets whatever every week. And we're trying to get her to start doing her own YouTube channel. And I'm like, listen, if you're going to do this and you want to create, we'll give you more time there, but like start filming videos, start doing this, start doing that. And she's 13-year-old teenage girl. So she's just coming up with excuses why she can't. And then I literally said to her last night, and it's funny because me and my wife were like sitting across from her, me and Hannah were sitting across from her, kind of mocking her, but playfully having fun with her too. And we're like, look around. Like, do you know why we have all this? YouTube. Because of YouTube, right? And then like everything we came to is like, you realize all the things that you love in life started by me being willing to film videos on YouTube before I knew what it would become. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize how, and I was just having this conversation with her and kind of having fun and playful and mocking her and trying to also like incentivize her to go and, do it and get started, because if she could do it now, I mean, man, her life would never be the same, But that goes back to, for me, my authority platform started in the financial space, and I just believe that I guess I would define an authority platform is, I don't have a pure definition for it, but this is how I kind of explain it, is that no matter what you do, there are people that are looking for you, period, right? And they want your service, they want your intellect, they want your expertise, they want your coaching, they want access to your community, they want access to your relationships, they like whatever it is, right? You have something unique inside you, and I believe everybody has something unique inside them that was our God-given, our divine-given talents, abilities, skills, whatever, that you were put on this earth to be able to share. And I think it's our soul's purpose and soul's journey to be able to identify and find what those things are, to be able to go do it. You know what I mean? Like that for me, that's what life is all about. That's what this journey is all about. And so it's really interesting because I didn't start off thinking I was building an authority platform, but what happened was I just created videos. And then what happened is I started making YouTube videos, and then people kept commenting on them after a couple of years. And then I was like, oh my gosh, they're making all these comments. I got to create ways to help them. And so I started creating funnels and websites and other PDFs and landing pages and different things that would add value to the people that were asking questions. And before you knew it, I had this big platform, And the bottom line is this, is that the people that need you, whether they find you or find somebody else, they're going to go online. They're going to go search. And as much as I don't like Grant Cardone, he says this the best, I think, that I've ever heard, is he says, it's not the best product that wins, it's the best marketed product that wins, period. So it's not about and I've heard so many people say, oh man, Chris, I'm so talented. I've got such an ability to make such a difference in so many people's lives. If I could just get in front of the people, if I could just, if people just knew about me, imagine the difference in this world I could make. Well, then you need to go make your authority platform, right? Like, how are people going to know about you if you don't have a place for them to go find you? And listen, you got to have social media presence. You got to have a process. And I think social media is the top of the funnel, so to speak, right? It's the easiest way that people can identify you, be made aware of who you are, what you do, and then make your content congruent with what your offer is, with who you want to serve. Make content that is designed to be marketing towards the people you want to serve, add value to those people. Don't create content. Don't go out and build your platform saying, I have an objective of creating X amount of revenue and getting X amount of conversions and all this stuff. Go out. I was talking to my wife because we're launching our new business, Thrive Hive, which is a new podcast and all this stuff that is going to be integrated into what we're doing at Zaria, because there's so much synergy there. But she's creating content. And I said to her, she was like, I don't know what to make for content to really connect with people and convert people and get them to really see the value. And I'm like, well, first of all, you're thinking about it wrong. If you're really trying to force that, you're in your head. Like, get out of your head, get into your heart, and think about, if you where do you have the ability to actually purely, truly, authentically add the most value to people, right? And what makes your heart sing? What do you want to share with people, right? And so I said to her, my question to you, babe, is if you were to die tomorrow, what are the 10 things that you can think of, the top 10 things that you will have wished you could have left behind? Your top tips, skills, wisdom, insights, mindsets, processes. Like, what would you want to share? Like, what do you think your 10 most impactful things that you could leave behind that would benefit humanity, that would help people go from where they are to get to where they want to go, help them close that gap, and help actually make an impact in people's lives? Not making it about how do you close people into a deal, how do you get them to sign up for a retreat or anything of that nature, but how do you just serve them without expectation? And what value do you believe that you could leave behind? And dude, she started crying. She's like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. And so before you know it, she's up there.
Bro,
and
I'm getting emotional thinking about the, as you're saying that.
This is the thing out of marketing. Like I can't stand. So I do marketing a lot different than most people. Most people think about marketing as selling. And listen, there's an element of that has to happen. Don't get me wrong. But really from marketing perspective, I look at it very selfishly. Like I have a big significance drive and I just want to help the earth, right? And I believe that money follows value. And if we create enough value, money is just a scoreboard, like, to show us how impactful are we being, And I don't believe that there's any product or any service or any retreats or anything that's going to change our life with one thing. It's we need to become who we need to become to create the life that we want to live. We need to put the work in. We need to take accountability. And we need to be really clear on what a life that matters to us looks like, right? I mean, you and I, we're friends. We're good friends, right? And so we have a lot of shared values. And at the same time, if you were to write out what a pure life that truly matters to Ian Vogel looks like, it's probably going to look fairly different than what a pure life that matters to Chris Kirkpatrick looks like. And while there may be some overlap, you're going to have so many unique nuances to your version that I'm going to have. And so what you need to do to create your life that matters is probably going to be a little bit different than me. And while we can have overlap and collaboration and all this stuff, it's important that you are really clear on what a life that matters to you looks like. And then once you're clear on that, then build your authority platform, right? Because now you're going to be able to go out and create content that's authentic to you, that's real, that's full of integrity, that's going to connect with the people that you actually purely want to serve. Because I know so many people, and guess what? I've done this. I've made this mistake. That's how I've gotten to this conclusion where I know how to build things. I could sell anything to anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm a great salesperson in that way, but I've learned to not do that because of the fact that when I did that in the past, I made sales, but what happened was I made sales to the people that I didn't want to work with, and then before you know it, I go down that path and I've got this group of people that I have to serve and I'm responsible for, and I don't enjoy my life at that point in time. So to me, the goal of building an authority platform is it's your mountaintop to stand on, to be like, this is who I am and this is where I am. And if you align with this, if you align with me, if we share these values, if we, you want to go on a similar journey, this is the path that I've taken to get here, and let me share it with you. And now through social media and then creating sales funnels and registration pages and free downloads and lead magnets and like all these different courses and offerings and retreats and events, like that's you got to have a process and a flow that people can go through to connect with you, and you got to make it easy for them to get into your world, and you got to have what we call a value ladder, which is like allow people to get in easy, build a relationship with them over the time, and let them ascend through that process with you. That's really what it comes down to. But don't lose yourself, and the thing I can't stand about, and this is something, I was a huge fan of Russell Brunson. Don't get me wrong. I love Russell. I think he does a lot of really good for the industry, but there's a lot of stuff out there in regards to like the NLP stuff that is designed to train and train people to like, I don't know. It's like designed to manipulate people. You know what I mean? NLP was never designed to be a sales tool, but a lot of people have taken it and twisted it in use for sales, especially on online sales funnels and opt-in videos and all this stuff. And, I just think there's a responsibility if you're going to go down that, make sure you're doing it from a place of full integrity and not just trying to convert people. I would just say it's important first and foremost for you to live a fully authentic and high integrity life for yourself. So that whatever you're doing, you're going to be completely fulfilled in. And that's the key to everything. And if you do that, it doesn't matter if you get 100,000 followers or 1,000. It's not about volume or the numbers. It's about having the right people that you're actually going to be able to make an impact on, because you could have 100,000 followers, with a low engagement rate and nobody actually signing up because they're not the right people. This is the thing that I find funny with all the egos out there that are buying followers, and trying to look bigger and more important than they are. It's like, I'd rather find somebody with 500 followers that has a high engagement and that has maybe 20 or 30 people in their life that they're actually making an impact on. Like, to me, that's what this is about. And I promise you, if you do it that way, your life is going to be more fulfilling and you're going to enjoy the process along the way. And guess what? Like, the ripple effect is going to be much greater. And I love the phrase, be willing to go slow to go fast. And that's what I mean by this. Like, if you do that and you can just build this ecosystem where you can actually serve and build people in a way that is in alignment with how you naturally show up, you're going to be fulfilled. People are going to want to come in and experience what you have to offer. And as you can help them elevate, guess what? It's just going to spread. It takes a little longer to do that, but life is going to be more fun along the way.
Well, that's super powerful and very impactful. And the one thing that really struck me, because I'm in the beginning stages of a side project, and it's been percolating for years, and now it's getting closer to the surface, and I just have had some hesitation around it. Well, you helped bring some clarity to something.
Cool.
And it was clarity. Like, get clear with what you want. I've heard you say this before. Start with the end in mind. Have a clear destination for where you want this thing to go. Know who you want to serve. Know what you want to say. Like, at what you were telling Hannah, your wife, I felt like you were speaking directly to me. It was like, before I get in front of the camera and start making all these videos, it's really going to be in my best interest to be very clear what kind of videos that I want to make and what kind of message I want to send and who I want to be speaking to specifically. Sure, I could start making videos and just start throwing stuff at the wall, but then there's going to be a much longer, slower start and a longer period of trial and error.
Right.
If I could take some more time in the beginning, and I think this would be applicable to everybody, like when you're starting a marketing journey or starting to market something, like the amount of time you spend in the beginning, and I've heard this other places, like 1 minute spent in planning is equal to 10 minutes of execution. So like you'll save yourself so much time if you just go slow in the beginning, get really clear on your direction, and so that you're not having to course correct as much along the way. So you can just focus on what you're doing. And I think that's such a poignant piece of advice. And I hope that really came through for people, like before you do anything, spend time with yourself, know what you really want for you and who you want to work with, and be clear on the value that you provide to the marketplace and to the people that you work with, and focus on that. Focus on what you know, and focus on the things that feel good and the things that you actually want to talk about. And to know those things, it might take a little time in the beginning to sit with yourself and really plan it out, write it out, get on ChatGPT, think of, come up with some ideas, but whatever it takes.
You know what I've done recently, and me and Hannah have both done this, and I would encourage every single person to do this, is spend time journaling, right? But here's the deal, journal in ChatGPT. And the reason is because when you journal inside of ChatGPT and dump all of your thoughts, all the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the just nasty, like whatever real positive vibes that you have, whatever self-limiting beliefs you have, just journal it all there, right? All your aspirations, all your fears, everything, just put it all in there. And the reason for this is because that allows you to really get to know who you are. And what I've realized is, and this is something Hannah and I have both done, is by doing that, and as you're building your brand and also doing your other kind of technical marketing stuff, you can then ask ChatGPT to help you build out a marketing plan that is more authentic and help. And I'm telling you, I did this the other day. I'm rewriting my book, Cash Flow Hacking, right? And in this, I asked it, I said, listen, I want to change what this is about, because the first version of Cash Flow Hacking was very linear. It was very focused on one thing. And I wanted to be a more vast thing to really help people holistically with their finances and be in alignment with who I am today. Because the first time I wrote the book was 4 years ago, and I'm a wildly different person today than I was back then, right? And so I want the spirit of the book to embody who I am today, not who I was back then, and not who I was when the brand was created. And I want the brand to evolve with me because it's important to me. And so because I'd been journaling, And because it knows all my technical stuff, because I use it a lot on the insurance and financial strategy side, real estate investment side, all that stuff, I was able to say, listen, here's how the book was, and I whatever, and here's what I want it to be. Based on what you know about me, based on all of our conversations, all of my journaling, what would you say are the things that I could work into this book and the ways that I could find my new authentic voice? And because I literally had dozens and dozens of pages worth of journaling in it, was it able to pull it out? And I'm telling you, within 5 minutes, I was almost in tears. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, how I felt about how I was going to be able to convey who I wanted to be holistically, not just in the financial space, but as a business leader, as a person that wants to help men break through and become who they need to be to live the life that they want to live, as husbands, as fathers, as conscious business leaders, as, getting financial security, as a retreat host, as somebody who wants to help that whole space. I mean, that's a lot to bring in together, you know what I mean? But it did it. And I'm telling you, I would have had to pay a consultant $50,000 to help me come up with the same thing. But because I just unloaded my life into ChatGPT for a 6-month period, it was able to do it for me. So if you're not using ChatGPT, you need to be doing it.
Yeah. And I think these, the way that you're using it as a tool,
Yep.
and journaling is so valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, just whether it's on pen and paper or whether it's in something like ChatGPT, the amount of data that you can potentially give to an artificial intelligence to analyze. And I've been working with AI a lot over the last few months in different contexts. And I've noticed it's really good at some things and some things it's not quite so good at yet.
Sure.
But what it is the best at is analyzing data and finding patterns and taking large pieces of data and picking out and identifying the patterns and things that it sees repeatedly over and over again. And I'm guessing when you went through that process, it probably picked out patterns that you hadn't identified within yourself. With all the amount of data that you gave it, it was able to see things that were coming up over and over again that to you may be passing or maybe unconscious, but it's like, oh, boom, here's all these things.
It's not just the patterns. And yes, you're right, it identifies patterns. But what it did for me is, and I'm sure everybody watching this, whether you're an influencer in any space, you have your unique ability, and your unique ability to you just feels natural, right? Because it's your unique ability. And so sometimes it's harder for you to be able to identify some of these processes and frameworks and so on and so forth. And so for me, what was interesting was when I read the output from it, I was like, oh my gosh, that it all just made so much sense. And I was like, why was I not able to identify that myself? Why was it so hard for me? Why did I not see this? It was all the things that I say in all these different conversations, and I've got 1,600 YouTube videos, right? So, and I've uploaded my books and all my transcripts, and I've got this thing, it knows me better than I know myself, obviously, at this point in time, right? And so when I did it, it was able to take everything I said, the good, the bad, the ugly, and mixed in with the journaling, and then it knew what I didn't want too, right? That's important, right? It knew who I want to be in the world. It knew what I considered fulfilling. And it made sure that the outputs were completely in alignment, not with just what I wanted to create, but what I wanted to make sure was avoided in that creation. And so to give that output, it was a life-changing moment. You know what I mean? And it's pretty cool. And that's the thing though, is I'm constantly evolving. Everybody should be constantly evolving. And that's what this life is about, is growth. It's the journey. It's not the destination. And so that's why, circling back to the beginning, is when it comes to marketing, when it comes to doing all this stuff, building a business, whether it's running a retreat or just building a business or whatever, you need time for yourself. You need time to just be wholly present. And I think going to masterminds, going to events, going to experiences that will allow you to get to that place to unplug and get to know yourself on a deeper level so you can do the work to hit that next level. That's the magic in this life to me. And I think it's sad how few people are doing it. And I think selfishly, that's been the greatest gift and blessing of buying the retreat center, is getting to know people in that, getting to spend more time inside of those containers with people that are on those journeys. It's just made, I feel like it's just made me a more conscious and aware person to help me in all these other areas, But I will say that it's not all easy, right? Like it's hard too. Like doing that work has taken time away from things. And it's where I say sometimes you got to be willing to go slow to go fast. And for me, I had to pump the brakes on a couple things. I had to do some stuff, but now I'm going to be able to go 3 times as fast as I would have been able to go before. You know what I mean? And so it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think it just, like, as you said, kind of wrapping it up and bringing it back to having that ability to, whether it's take that time to yourself, because doing that, all that journaling you did took time, inputting all that information. It's like, you're putting it into ChatGPT, but ChatGPT isn't responding to you in real time. That's really time where you're going inward and assessing your own thoughts and your own beliefs and putting it out there.
100%.
Yeah. On the back end, ChatGPT was able to do something magical with it.
Yep.
The only reason ChatGPT was able to do what it did is because you spent so much time and just by yourself in the quiet, just doing that work and journaling and looking inward.
For sure.
And I've facilitated many ceremonies myself, plant medicine ceremonies, and there's nothing quite as fulfilling as watching people have breakthroughs and go through the kind of experiences that people have at Zaria. Just like when you're going through a breakthrough yourself, you don't realize that the person who's helping facilitate it is also going through a growth and expansion.
Totally.
And the people who are holding space, like you typically don't have that perception yourself, but it's happening. Everybody, like you're never in it alone when you're in a group container like that. Sure, like everybody is growing and learning and expanding together at the same time. And that's what makes those kind of retreats and masterminds, that's what makes them so powerful. Okay. If it was just you by yourself in a hut in the jungle, you'd certainly have profound experiences on your own, and people certainly do all the time. And when you add other people into it who are vibrating at the same level or have this similar values and a similar mindset, similar goals, and they're there for a similar reason, it's just a force multiplier. It's like you don't add to the group, you like your presence there multiplies the amount of energy and what's happening and the amount of transformation that happens within the group. And I'm so grateful that I was able to come and visit Zaria and have the experience that I had there. I'm super grateful to have met you and that you're so willing to come on and chat today and have this awesome conversation and share so much knowledge and so much of your story. Is there anything you'd like to end with? I'll kind of give you the mic at the very end. How can people get a hold of you, or if people are interested in seeing what you're doing outside of Zaria, if people are interested in checking out Zaria itself, we'll let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I would just say the last thing I want to say is, and I said it a little bit, but it's just kind of my story right now. And I feel like it's my life's journey in what I'm being called to share is that the reason we are all where we are in life is because of who we are, right? And the gap and get really clear on what you want your life to be. Like, what does a life that matters mean to you? And then figure out where you are, and the results that you have in your life are based on who you are and who do you need to become to create that life that matters to you. And then you can identify this gap and you can kind of start filling the gap in. And I think doing the work and getting in the right communities and surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are on the same or similar journey is the key. And you can only do that through groups. So whether you're somebody who looks to run groups and run retreats or whatever, I would say reach out. We have an amazing space, and I'd love to have a conversation about what it might look like for somebody to host an event at our place at Zaria down in the Dominican would look like. And then obviously I would just encourage, go to retreats, go get yourself around those people. I've already been, it's February, middle of February when we're filming this, and I've already been to 3 retreats this year. You know what I mean? And it's a part of my life. And if that weren't such a big part of my life, like I wouldn't be growing at the rate that I'm growing. And so now I realize not everybody has the ability to do that, but I definitely think 1 to 2 retreats per year is something everybody should be participating in. Find your tribe and surround yourself with people who see you as a higher version of yourself than you believe in yourself. If you question if that's out there, it's out there. I promise. You just got to go find it. Spend the time to find it. It's going to be one of the most valuable things that you can do, is finding your tribe that believes in you and believes in your message. And then just be willing to grow slow and become who you need to be to build what you're looking to build that matters. And so that's what I would say. So that said, If anybody does want to connect or reach out on Instagram, you can go to Visit Zaria at Visit Zaria, Zaria is our Instagram channel. Pretty cool channel, good content that goes on there. My personal Instagram is at Real Chris Kirkpatrick. Go follow me there. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much it. Simple.
That's awesome. And just to piggyback on that a little bit,
Yeah.
like a retreat does not have to be an extravagant adventure around the world. It can be getting together with a few of your closest friends and everybody chipping in on an Airbnb, like where everybody can meet and you can do your thing, whatever that is. Maybe it's just get out of your home, like getting yourself out of your comfort zone, giving yourself an opportunity to have a pattern interrupt.
Sure.
And as you said, like being around people who can support you in a way that may see you in a way that you don't necessarily see yourself is going to help lead to growth and evolution in a way that when you're all by yourself, you may not have access to that level of growth at that speed.
Totally.
So Chris, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too, man. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
Hey, thanks, brother.